So today's topic is going to be one of the many chapters within our episodes of MS Word, the integration of engineering capabilities on top of MS Word, specifically requirements management capabilities. And today's session is going to be dedicated exclusively to propagating changes from traceability links, right? This is something that we refer to internally as the concept of a binding, okay? The first thing that I would like to highlight is that we have different types of elements, right? The first thing that would prompt into my head would be textual requirements, right? Textual requirements are essential, as you already know. These compose basically the legal documents, all the different requirement specifications. Most of these specifications and the details are written in, let's say, textual natural language, right? This is why textual requirements compose conceptualize one of the main groups that I would highlight as a specific source type, right? Then the second one would be conceptual models. These conceptual models basically help you formalize different ideas, different abstract ideas generally, right? And then we narrow down and we define specifically which are going to be the real elements that we're going to use in the construction of the final system, okay? Which is why we use physical models, okay? So with these three different source types in mind, we can highlight so many different tools in order to actually develop and actually prepare each of these different types of elements, right? This is what we refer to as authoritative sources of truth. The name comes from the capabilities, the so specific and refined capabilities to actually build requirements or specify requirements, build models, and construct physical models, okay? So these capabilities are specifically dedicated to all these different tasks, let's say, throughout the system lifecycle. But there's one flaw that comes with the environment of having so many different tools, and it's the possibility to connect them and interoperate between them, right? This is why we detect the necessity of what we call a synchronized source of truth, which is basically a common environment which is going to provide you with the capability to connect all these different tools and interoperate between them. And by interoperating, I mean three main different activities, right? There's plenty more, but we will focus on these three, okay? We will revise them a little bit later. This concept or this common environment is going to be embraced in our case by the SES Engineering Studio. So the SES Engineering Studio is going to represent this common platform where everything can be connected to, and these activities, these systems engineering activities, right, can be performed on top of these different sources, okay? These different authoritative sources of truth, to be more precise. So let's take a look at these three different types of activities that I was mentioning before. The first one is going to be keeping the element's nature, okay? It's going to simply be moving, copying word products, the classical merge that we performed, appending the information after the content that we already have in destination, so on and so forth, okay? The second one is going to be a little bit more complicated in the sense that you're now transforming the nature or the requirement or the model into something else, right? We're modifying the nature here, okay? Sorry. And the third one is going to be the one that we are going to be focusing on today, which is the binding of work products. We'll link two elements between each other by a traceability link. So these elements must be related. And then when we perform a modification on one side, then this change is going to be propagated or is going to trigger another action on the opposite. Okay, so this is very important to keep, let's say, information updated, as we will see in the next example. Okay, so we're going to jump right into the use case for the binding. Perfect. So the first thing that I would like to highlight is that we are within MS Word. If you have already seen one of our previous episodes, everything that we are performing here is just one plugin, one add-in on top of Word, right? So you have your documentation overview, which is the classical MS Word view. In this case, we have all the different requirements, specification. And these requirements that we have here within the documentational view can also be observed and can also be detected on the right-hand side. In this right-hand side, this is what we call the engineering view, right? And as you can see, we have extracted all the information, all the requirements, not all the paragraphs and all the text, but specifically, all the different requirements, okay? The pane in the middle is going to be a connection to another authoritative source of truth. So in this case, the first authoritative source of truth is going to be the MS Word. And the second one, the one with which I want to interoperate and connect to, is going to be a Cameo model, right? In this Cameo model, if you notice here in the middle, let me just highlight it. If you notice here in the middle, I have my product breakdown structure defined, right? So I have my different components and I have highlighted specifically the control system. Why is this? This is that way because on the right-hand side, on the requirements specification, all the different requirements that I have are concerning this particular component, the control system, okay? And what do I want to do with this? If I modify, let's imagine if I modify my model on the left-hand side within Cameo and I change the name, right, of the component from control system to something else, then what I want to have, let's say, is a completely automatic process to update the name on each one of the requirements within the specification, okay? So this is the trick, right? For the modification, as you will see, we can just simply modify we can simply type the new name that we want. In this case, we're going to change control system by orchestrating system. And you will see that the change is automatically propagated to the right-hand side. Let me highlight once again. And here you can see that all the control systems, no matter the place that it's occupying inside the requirement, are modified accordingly, okay? The same can happen with other components. So here I have also the temperature registration system, which is appearing here in two places. Two requirements contain as well the temperature registration system. And if I modify it by the measurement system, now the change has been propagated, okay? I will now revert back to all the different, to the original component names, okay? So temperature registration system and control system, to change the specification, because if you notice here, the first requirement was not modified. The first requirement was control system and it stayed the same. This is because I will show you now how to actually perform the binding process with the first one. And we will see in the end how a change on the control system name is going to be propagated to all the different requirements, okay? So we simply select the option to start the binding, okay? And we click on the opposite side on the element that we desire to be binded, and we select the option to finish a binding, okay? In this section, what we will do is basically define the binding activity itself. Which element, which part of the element on the left-hand side on the source is going to be taken into consideration, and which element on the right-hand side or the destination is going to be taken into consideration, okay? So in this case, both the name of the component and the description of the requirement are going to be involved. For the description, I'm going to be a little bit more precise because I don't want to modify all the requirements. I want to modify just one part within it. And this is going to be possible to do thanks to something that we call patterns. A pattern is basically a structural template which we can use to define and differentiate all the different blocks. This is what I was mentioning before as an artificial intelligence and, let's say, semantic technology application, okay? So this structural template allows me to specifically select the component of the control system, in this case. And now if I modify here in the left-hand side on the Cameo model, the name of the component, this change is going to be propagated to every requirement, including also the first one, okay? So with this, we would finish, let's say, the use case, the practical use case, as well as the main part of the presentation. Now we will jump onto one of the most important parts I consider in this session, which is your opinion. Do you agree? Do you find this capability useful? Do you find all the alternatives possible? Which is your experience, let's say, in general, okay? So feel free to open your mics or just send a chat message to our administrator, and she will pass it on to me, and we can discuss it a little bit.
We have one comment here. I like this concept of changes propagation, but I'm concerned about the negative impact this capability may have when changes are spread immediately. Is this something you have considered?
That's an excellent topic. Of course, it is very, let's say, important to have all these changes controlled, right? You cannot simply propagate the changes as soon as you make them, right? This is why we have, let's say, some additional capabilities on top of this, right? The binding is one of the many capabilities that you can apply, let's say, in terms of interoperability. But we also have two main topics, I would say, to highlight to help you, let's say, deal with this issue. The first one would be the roles and the security permissions that you have. So you can assign permissions for any type of user for them to be able to access or not to access, or to modify, or just have a read-only copy, okay, of the document. So firstly, let's say the first barrier of defense would be to not provide permissions so that you cannot, not everybody can modify, okay? And the second one would be a change request, right? We are able within the SVS Engineering Studio, we have detected this sort of issue, and one of the applications would be to change into a change request mode so that you perform the change, the modification, but this modification does not go through yet. It's going to send, let's say, a request or a proposal for change onto the administrator or the person who's responsible for the process and has the appropriate permissions for him or her to accept or deny the proposal to change. If this proposal of change goes through, then the change will be performed and the propagation will be complete. If not, then the change will not go through, let's say, will not be stored and will not be saved. Therefore, it will not be propagated onto the destination, let's say, right? But that is a wonderful question, and I think it is worth to discuss this topic because, of course, this propagation can be very powerful, but if used in a, let's say, uncontrolled manner, it can just wreak havoc and just do more harm than good, let's say, okay? But that is a wonderful question. Thank you very much for your comment. Do we have any further comments or questions?
No, no further questions.
No other questions? Okay. So feel free to share your experiences if you would like or you would prefer via email or through our website chat. And before we go, I would like to discuss and to present you the next episode, which is going to be on collaboration. This is the topic of today's session. I think it's quite interesting, but I think it is even more interesting and important, the cooperation and the collaboration between the different authoritative sources of truth. And this is going to be on the next episode. You have the dates here below. So it's going to be Monday and Tuesday, June the 5th and the 6th, respectively. And finally, just before we go, thank you very much for your time and for your attention. And of course, just mentioning that we have the website of the Reuse Company and our page, our group, let's say, inside YouTube as well. Okay, thank you very much for your time, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.